Hey, Darksiders, Mr. Gunderson here, and welcome to Distance Learning. It's day one. It's Monday, March 30th, and here we go. Let's see what happens. Um, Again, just to reiterate, there's this Dark Side Lit Distance Learning folder. In there, there's a Welcome to Distance Learning video where I talk about some different ways that you can contact me, just what the expectations are for distance learning. Uh, my contact information, here's how to sign up for Remind, and then just some tips and advice in regards to distance learning. So there's that. And as you know, I like calendars and I like planning things out. So here is April 2020 distance learning. It's the entire month broken down by week, by day, so you know what we're doing each day. And then of course over here in the upcoming tab, um, has the day-by-day snapshot of what we're doing there. So use that, use those resources so you know what's going on and when. Okay. Regardless of distance learning, if we were going to be in regular school or whatever, the next thing we were going to get into is this folder here, this sins, devil, and afterlife. And so we're getting into that, and you'll be working on a few things here over the next probably about week and a half roughly. And the first thing that we're going to work on is 7 deadly sins. And so we're going to talk about that here today. I just want to, again, stress that all I am expecting of you and all of your teachers should be expecting of you is 20 minutes of work per day per class. Okay? So that's 20, 20 minutes. Now, this video that I'm making here, if it's 10, 15, I don't know how long it's going to be. 10, 15 minutes long. That pretty much takes up a lot of your time. That 20 minutes is not only instruction, but it's also homework. 20 minutes total. All right, so just keep that in mind for your classes each day. All right, let's talk about the 7 deadly sins. We'll go through this presentation and away we go. All right, one of the sub-rules of the deal with the devil is the use of the 7 deadly sins. A lot of times in stories and in literature, in movies, when the devil makes a deal with someone, he is using one of those 7 deadly sins as temptation. Okay, and so that's kind of where we're going to start off with. For ages, humankind is focused on its shortcomings. The ancient Greeks used the behavior of the gods to show many weaknesses like pride, lust, and dishonesty. And the Catholic Church took those ancient Greek ideas and molded them into the traditional 7 deadly sins. Many Christian denominations teach this concept. All right, the first one that we have here. Now, a lot of the 7 deadly sins is probably the most popular work of literature that talks about these sins is Dante's Inferno, Paradiso, and Purgatorio. There's some really good. I think we'll talk more about that when we get to the afterlife. But what Dante did is basically he created 9 different levels of heaven, purgatory, and hell. And a lot of these sins, these 7 deadly sins, is if a person commits these, that's where they wind up. Now, the other thing too, as we go through this, we talk about the 7 deadly sins, is to remember that these are sins in extreme excess. These are the extreme example of these sins. All right, so pride is the first one. It is excessive belief in one's own abilities that interfere with the individual's recognition of the grace of God. It has been called the sin from which all others arise. So this is like the big one. All right. Why people do it? Because hubris, ego, and selfishness are innately human qualities. Your punishment in hell. And now each of these, I gave a punishment. You can go out on the internet, you can go into literature, and you can find all different examples of what the punishments. When Dante devised the 9 levels of hell, each one had a different kind of punishment. And so this is it's not a hard and fast rule, but this is what the punishment would be. You'll be broken on a wheel. Now, for each of these sins, now there was a movie, great movie. It's one of my top 10 movies of all time. It's called 7. And basically it's about a serial killer that kills people based on the 7 deadly sins, and it's got a phenomenal twist ending. If you haven't seen 7, I highly, highly recommend it. It is fantastic. I'm not going to show the scenes in this presentation just for time's sake, but feel free to go back through this. You'll have access to it, and these are scenes for each of the sins. So this one is pride. All right, the next one is gluttony. This is an inordinate desire to consume more than that which one requires. Why people do it? Because it's self-gratification. Your punishment is hell, you'll be force-fed rats, toads, and snakes. Now, again, this doesn't necessarily mean food, and again, these sins, gluttony, are to the extreme. If you go and chow down at China Buffet, that's not gluttony. You're not committing one of the 7 deadly sins. All right. The next one, and then there's the video clip for it. The next one is lust. This is an inordinate craving for the pleasures of the body. Why people do it? This is considered an uncontrollable urge. Punishment is hell, you'll be smothered in fire and brimstone for all eternity. And then the movie clip. Next one is sloth. Sloth is the avoidance of physical or spiritual work. Again, to the extreme. Okay, you got to think to the extreme. Why you do it? You're a shiftless, lazy, and good for nothing. I mean, yeah. Anyway, your punishment in hell, you'll be thrown into a pit of snakes. And that's the clip for sloth from the movie 7. Greed is the next one. Greed is a desire for material wealth or gain, ignoring the realm of the spiritual. It is also called avarice or covetousness. Okay, greed. Why you do it? We live in a very materialistic, consumerist world. This is a desire of never being satisfied and always wanting more. Punishment in hell, being boiled alive in oil for all eternity. Sounds fantastic. And then the clip for greed. Next one is envy. Envy is a desire for others' traits, status, abilities, or situation. Why you do it? Because other people are so much luckier, smarter, more attractive, and better than you. I think your punishment in hell is you'll be immersed in freezing water for all eternity. Now, this is one that, again, you have envy. For it to be a 7 deadly sin, it has to be to the extreme level. But we've all been envious of someone at some point. It's part of human nature. But when you take it to a different level, that's when you get into it being a deadly sin. And then wrath is shown in the individual who spurns love and instead chooses anger. Murderers, those kind of things. Why you do it? These people are wired for anger and violence. Punishment is you'll be dismembered alive. And then here is the clip for envy and wrath from the scene, or from the movie 7. Now, if you haven't seen the movie and you want to see this movie, it's a great movie. Do not watch this clip. Okay, this is the big ending twist thing. Okay, so don't watch this clip if you want to watch the movie. The church also has the 7 virtues. These are positive traits that are the inverse of the sin. So here we have pride. One of the virtue, the opposite of that is humility, envy, kindness, gluttony, temperance or moderation, sloth, diligence, lust, chastity, greed, charity or generosity, wrath, patience. All right, so your assignment that you're going to be working on this week is called seven deadly sins and symbols assignment. Okay, oftentimes in deal stories, the devil plays on one or more of the deadly sins. This is a temptation. He uses lust or greed or envy or wrath against the person and tempts them with that sin. So your assignment is going to be coming up with symbols, of each of the 7 deadly sins, Okay. These symbols are items that take on a deeper meaning. Think of symbols to represent each of the 7 deadly sins. Okay, so you got to think of a symbol. What symbolizes greed? Could be money, could be a car, could be a snowmobile. Okay, consider persons, animals, things, or even places. Draw and label your symbols. So you're going to draw a symbol for that deadly sin, and then you have to write a sentence explaining how that symbol that you drew fits that sin. And I have examples here to show you. All right. So if we go back into the 7 deadly sins folder and we open up the assignment, here it is. Okay. So here's a couple of student examples. So if we take a look at them, I think there it is. So this is what you're doing. Here's pride, and here's a person has a first place medal, and then here's their sentence explaining why the medal fits pride. Okay, over here, lust. Here's a picture for live girls. Obviously looks like a strip club. I drew a billboard advertising a strip club. Okay, and you need a little bit more of a explanation there for that. Gluttony. I drew a diner because they often have all-you-can-eat buffets where people take and eat more than their fair share. Okay, gluttony. Sloth, a video game controller. Greed, money, envy. The grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, right? Okay, and then here's wrath. One guy shooting another person. That's all right. So that's what you're doing. You're drawing a symbol, or you're picking a symbol that represents pride, lust, gluttony, so forth. Drawing the symbol and writing an explanation of how that fits. Okay. So that's and here's another student example that we can take a quick look at. And there it is. Okay. And that's all you're doing with that assignment. All right. So that is going to be due on let's see, I'll have to fix the due date, but that's going to be due on, let's see, it's going to be due on Friday, so that's April 3rd. Okay, that's going to be due on April 3rd. All right, and then next week you're going to get into reading The Mask of the Red Death, which is an Edgar Allan Poe story. Very heavy story, dealing with lots of symbolism, and you'll have some questions to do with that and so forth. We'll talk about that later, though. All right, so that's the intro to 7 Deadly Sins. You have your symbols and 7 Deadly Sins assignment. It's due on Friday. If you have questions, email, text me and remind. Get a hold of me if you have questions. Anything that I can help with, I am here to help you with. All right. So if you have it, that's our intro to 7 Deadly Sins, and away you go. Enjoy.